Please share this video with as many people as you can. This can make a big change in the outcome of Lockport and surrounding communities. Simply doing this to educate and to teach people what I've learned, because it's disturbing. We've proven in the past we were right by pointing out bad mayors and bad elected officials that resigned from office, that were indicted. Some that were indicted are still our elected officials. But I found this system of finding out who the patriots are by simply looking at the ballot in Niagara County. First, of a patriot, a person who vigorously supports their country and is prepared to defend against enemies or detractors. Yes, is someone that gets active. So we found patriots on the ballots. Yes, there is patriots, but the patriots don't tend to get elected because the people tend to follow party lines. Now, ones that manipulate, number one, they handle or control it. They use a tool or mechanism, typically in a skillful manner. Vaporate, handle, work, control, use, more. Control or influence a person or situation cleverly, unfairly, and unscrupulously. Simply to deceive. So do we want a patriot? Or do you want a person that manipulates for an advantage? Now when we look at our ballot, of course my mouse isn't working here. We have the Democrat, Republican, Independents, Conservative, Libertarian, Working Families, and Green parties. Now, it is a known thing out there that a lot of people don't know the candidates, so it is like 90% of people almost vote party line because they don't really do the research on the candidates. So we found that there's manipulation going on. With the Republicans in Niagara County, I was once on the Republican committee and was a victim of their manipulation and their lies and their tactics and the unethical values. Now what they've discovered, like many other people have done across the country, that New York State has a system, it's called party fusion. They allow one candidate to run on all of the party lines. It creates confusion, and you get mailings that say this is the endorsed candidate, when really you don't know where the endorsement even comes from, but it sounds good, like they're a good person. So I'm registered conservative. My name is David Mangello. Yesterday just went to the Conservative Reorganizational County meeting, and like before in the past, it has been invaded by the Republican Party. They've selectively put people in positions to take control of the endorsements of the minor party lines because they found out these minor lines win elections. So one easy way of finding out if the person on the ballot is a manipulator is if they have the Republican line, the Independence line, and the Conservative line. Like, I had to win my primary election against a Republican that they put on against me in the Conservative primary. So I won the primary, but my opponent is still on the Republican and Independence line. That's the unfairness. This is what they do. If you don't meet their requirements, the status quo in Niagara County have confronted people wanting to run, Republicans that wanted to run, and they basically tell them it's not your time. You have to sit around the table like a dog and wait for the food scraps to fall off before it's your time to run. And then they'll let you run. And these are people that control the judges, the district attorney's office, the mayors. They control a lot. They control all of your money. All their corruption starts locally, people. It's not in the presidential election. It's all right here in your own backyard. So when you walk in and you see a Republican and they have all three lines, Independent, Republican, and Conservative line, they're involved with the manipulators. Now, if you see a candidate like myself that I'm on the conservative line and the libertarian line, Libertarian Party endorsed me because it's a new party that just received 50,000 votes in the last gubernatorial election, so they're able to endorse candidates. So they like my views, so they endorsed me. So I'm going to show up on the conservative libertarian line, and my opponent is on the Republican and Independence Party line. Well, how did they get on the Independence line? Well, they invaded that party too. They put people in the committees by Republicans. They have family members switch over a party, so they put them on the committee to control the endorsements. It's a form of creative manipulation, something they've done in Niagara County for years and years. So when you see that Republican with the Independence line or the conservative line, that person is the manipulator. But if you see Republican on a line and then he doesn't have the Independence conservative line, that's probably a patriot that beat the status quo off the Republican line. But the manipulator has the Independence and conservative line because that's the deep state line, the manipulators. The working families control their endorsements amongst the little committee. You cannot manipulate their endorsements. The Green Party, you can be manipulated. It's a very small party, and I've witnessed Republicans manipulating that line too. So it's very confusing what goes on out there. It is understandable. But if you concentrate on 3 lines, Republican, Independent, Conservative lines, you'll pretty much know who the patriots are that are running for office. Found this in the Penal Law. Section 195.20, defrauding the government. A person is guilty of defrauding the government when a public servant or party officer, when he or she engages in a scheme constituting a systematic, ongoing course of conduct with an intent to defraud the state, to obtain property and service on the resource of the state, and do so to collect resources with a value in excess of $1,000. This is a Class C felony. So realistically, these party people that have been working at the Board of Elections, that are part of the system, they're committing a felony, in my opinion. But how do we do this? Well, you have to understand that they try and trick us into thinking that we have no power to fix it, but we do have the power to fix it. And it's right in our own backyard. But you have to teach people this. You have to pass this on. New York State Constitution, Article 1, Bill of Rights, subsection 6. The power of the grand jury is to inquire to willful misconduct in public offices, and to find indictments or direct the filing of information in connection with such inquiries shall never be suspended or impaired by law. No person shall be deprived life, liberty, or property without the due process of law. Due process includes a grand jury and the jury system, something that was created thousands of years ago to protect our rights. Now, where it says the grand jury can inquire into willful misconduct in office, so there doesn't have to be a knowledge of a crime. They can simply inquire. They can find an indictment from the inquiry, and they can direct the filing of information. This means the grand jury can write a report and give it to the government, and the government has to follow it because the grand jury was created over 200 years ago. It wasn't created then, it was codified in our Bill of Rights. And then it was actually created in the Magna Carta over 800 years ago. We, the people of the state of New York, grateful to Almighty God for our freedom in order to secure this blessings, do establish this Constitution. Now, what law does the grand jury and the jury get to use? Well, it's right there, for the Almighty God. So our country was created from God. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected one another. This is from the Declaration of Independence. And to assume amongst the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. No, we're not talking about statutes, codes, and rules written by bureaucrats. And the bureaucrats wrote a lot of these rules and statutes to protect themselves. But we have very important documents to protect our rights and protect us from the government. The truth, we don't elect masters to control us. Public servants don't become our masters. Laws are there to protect us from evil and government. Only a jury can judge we the people. Only a grand jury can charge the people with a wrong. The juries can use common sense, and the juries can nullify legislated bad laws. Amendment 7, Bill of Rights. In suits at common law where the value and controversy shall exceed $20, the right of a trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States according to the rules of the common law. The word "the" means law that existed before the writing of this document. Yet attorneys will tell you common law is judicial precedent, laws decided by judges. No, we know the judges are servants. They're chosen by us. They're below us. They can't decide what our rights are. The common law system is from the Magna Carta in 1215 AD, and "the" means it's law from there. And the only entity to judge us or create or protect our rights, is the jury or the grand jury system. This is from American Jurisprudence. I took a trip to Buffalo UB Law Library. And this is the definition of common law. In a broader sense, the common law is a system of rules and declaration of principles in which our judicial ideas and legal definitions are derived, and in which are continually expanding. It is not a codification of exact and flexible rules for human conduct. Notice, it's not a codification. It's not written down. For the redress of injuries, for the protection against wrongs, but is a rather embodiment of broad and comprehensive unwritten principles inspired by natural reason and the innate sense of justice and adopted by common consent for the regulation and government of human affairs. So, the common law is unwritten law. It's common sense. It's what you have in your heart. It's not what bureaucrats write. And you sitting as a grand jury and a jurist have a right to use common law, common sense. You don't have to listen to the government. In this way, you can go after these corrupt elected officials the way the grand jury did back in the 1930s. They fired their own prosecuting attorney, hired one they trusted, and they got rid of mob bosses, corrupt police chiefs, judges. They cleaned house because that's the power of the grand jury. Now, there's many things written on the grand jury system. This is a very important case here. It's U.S. versus Williams, 1992, written by Antonin Scalia. You can search it on the web. And right here, he simply says, the grand jury is an institution separate from the courts over whose function the courts do not preside. Grand jury is only mentioned in the Bill of Rights. I highlighted the yellow sections here. The grand jury is mentioned in the Bill of Rights, not in the body of the Constitution. It has not been textually assigned, therefore, to any branches described in the first three articles. It is a constitutional fixture in its own right. And the whole fact, the history of the function of this belongs to no branch institutional government, serving as a kind of a buffer between the people, buffer or referee between the government and the people. Although the grand jury normally operates in the course of the courthouse under judicial auspices, is an intellectual relationship with the judge branch. The traditional been, so to speak, at arm's length. Judges' direct involvement function of the grand jury has generally been confined to the grand jurors together administering the oath of office. So the grand jury is also, this is important here, the grand jury can investigate merely of a suspicion that a law is being violated. Yet the government tells you that there has to be a felony, there has to be some type of law. No, the grand jury can use common sense. The grand jury requires no authorization from its constituting court to initiate an investigation, meaning when you're on a grand jury, you can do whatever you want when it comes to protecting other people's rights. in investigating government. You can go right on the Niagara County Jail website and research on there, and it talks about how a complaint was filed to the Niagara County Grand Jury, and they started investigating the jail, the living conditions at the jail, and they made recommendations and they fixed it. These are law reviews written, how the grand jury was captured by government. You can do a search on this article. It's a great article. Here's another Cretan law review. If it's not a runaway grand jury, it's not a real grand jury. This means that if the grand jury doesn't do their own investigation and do their own footwork in investigating crimes and wrongs by government, it's not a real constitutional grand jury. Granted, as a jurist, you are pressured by the government to do what they say a lot of times, but you're not part of them. You can do what you want. Don't be afraid. And when you're on a jury, you can't tell them you know this because they will kick you off. So you more have to be secretive to the government to protect your rights. So basically, how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go? You want the red pill or do you want the blue pill? If you want the blue pill, keep on voting the way you're going to vote. But if you want the red pill, you got to do some homework and some research and share this as much as you can. We were intended to fix government. The government can't fix itself. Thanks for watching.